Hello, this is Stan once again, and I'm the radio man with another series of inconvenient ideas. And here are the inconvenient ideas we're going to talk about today. First of all, you better learn how to avoid Monday mouth. And guess what? Maybe sometimes you should stand for the credits. Let me tell you some of those stories. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Or someone said, maybe Stan, from time to time you ought to say, greetings, guys and gals. Well, I don't know. Somebody else suggested you ought to say, greetings, gang. Because actually, maybe what you have is just a gang of different people. Gang. Guys and gals. Certainly not boys and girls, I'm sure. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? Well, by the way, since you are probably interested in learning a little bit more about how to be a world-class or a powerful or at least a helpful and useful communicator, you might want to know that by saying each of those, you have done something very different in your communication and in your program. So I think I'll stick right now with ladies. And we say that first, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, and that means that yesterday was Monday. Surprise. Now, one of the things I've often taught people is that Monday is a good day to kind of leave people alone. They've had the weekend, and perhaps it was a good weekend. Maybe perhaps it was an exhausting weekend. Perhaps it was a disappointing weekend. In fact, many years ago, a survey was found that guess what day was the busiest for Domino's Pizza? Now, this may be a legend, and it certainly might not be true today. But this was the legend, that it was Sunday night was pizza night. And when they tried to explain that, they came up with these two explanations. They said, first of all, the weekend is over, and people were kind of disappointed by it. They didn't particularly get what they wanted, so it was a kind of a disappointing weekend. And perhaps now they have to get ready for Monday, and they didn't get enough done on the weekend that they like to do, and now they have to face the marketplace on Monday. You know what? Let's just watch Netflix. Let's just watch the Ed Sullivan Show, and let's order a pizza. Let's do that. Let's carb out. And so it was found out that perhaps a Sunday night flowing into Monday morning was pizza night. Well, during Monday, I tell people, keep in mind that many people have gotten to work and they have things to get going for the week, and they have things to recover from the weekend. And maybe it's just good to just let it be. And so if you've got any phone calls to make or important things to ask people, maybe Monday is a day to let them get their act together and just cool it for a while. If you do contact them, as I would say, just speak life to them. Say something good, something nice, something cheerful, something friendly. Don't do heavy, hard stuff on Monday. And for sure, don't do what I call high, hard, and inside stuff. High, hard, and inside. By the way, that is a baseball term, and it applies to life too. And I'll probably talk to you about that. If you're interested, you could write to me at stan@witradio.net, and you want to know the answer or more information about any of these things I've said now in the first 5 minutes. I'll be glad to talk to you about it. I'll even give you a talk about it, or I'll even give a speech to your company about it, because each one of those things has something to do with how to live well and do business well. They are all inconvenient ideas, but they may be made into ideas that will be convenient. Now, two things you saw. First of all, yeah, we had an expression in broadcasting which we use all the time, and I still think about it. It says, watch out for Monday mouth. Watch out for Monday mouth. And then something that I did this past weekend, I stood and waited for the credits to roll completely. I went to a movie. We'll talk a little bit about that today. And at the end of the movie, I stood and everybody else left. I stood and I waited for the whole credits to roll. And I'm going to tell you why I did that. And maybe you should do it too from time to time. It's a good practice. Now, here we go. Monday mouth meant that meant for those of us who were more regular, if we were fortunate enough to have the weekend off, we got lazy. And what happens is that when you're a broadcaster, you really get into the habit of enunciating, speaking clearly with good energy, and it carries on through. But during the weekend, you kind of just talk kind of ordinary. Thank goodness most people don't want to hear you talk radio. However, what happens is that 48 hours, 24 hours, maybe 72 hours, you got lazy mouth. You didn't have your energy on. You didn't have your lungs full. You weren't enunciating. You weren't doing diction. You had a lazy mouth, and you can hear. Now, not a lot of people can hear, but the ones who are good can hear that you're a little bit off because you didn't do your wake-up call. You just went on the air behind the microphone. You were behind the microphone with Monday mouth, and it shows. And your lack of energy, your lack of preparation, your lack of commitment perhaps to your audience and to your colleagues and to your clients, it shows. So that's one of the reasons I didn't do the program yesterday, because I didn't know if I was fully over Monday mouth, and I had a lot of distractions that actually would have taken me a little bit off my game. So I said, we'll do this on Tuesday. And so I arranged my day to get it that way. Now, I had a good weekend, pretty good. The church service was, now I'm fortunate enough. I go to a church service, oftentimes online and in person when I can, but it's one of the few church services where I oftentimes say, wow. I mean, I really do. The music and the worship and the liturgy and oftentimes the messaging. As one of my pastor friends said to me, he said, Stan, when you do the leading of the worship, do it right, do it well, do it full of energy, do it as best as you can, because I'm not going to get the sermon good all the time. But that doesn't mean that the man or the woman who leads the worship, they have to get it right and good all the time. Wow. I had a wow church service. But on Saturday, after I had done all my Saturday stuff, all that stuff done, I called up and I went to the theater about a block and a half away, and I said, "When is the movie about D-Day? This is the D-Day. This is June 6th. When is it showing?" And he says, "We don't have it." I said, "What do you mean you don't have it?" He says, "Our competition down the street has it." I said, "Well, I was hoping you would have it. You're my neighborhood movie." He said, "Well, we don't have it. We don't get it. It's down the ways." And then you know what he did? Now think about this. He picked up his phone, said, Stan, it's down at the Rialto. And why don't you, 4:55 is the next showing, go. Can you see what he did? Do you see why I like him? Why I will make an effort to go back to his little theater, which is not a little theater, but it is kind of run like a little neighborhood theater. And I went. And it was the movie about D-Day, but it was very specifically, it wasn't about the battle. What it was a story about the decision to go and how meaningful that was. It was set to go June 4th. And there was a big controversy among the sponsors. There was one of the meteorologists who said, go. And that man had the confidence of General Eisenhower. There was another one who was new but was very good who said, if we go on June 4th, 5th, is, June, we go on June 5th on Monday. This was, we go on June 5th. Hey, we'll get wiped out. The weather's bad. And the other guy said, no, it's going to be good. Well, on Sunday, June 4th, they found out late in the day that maybe the guy who had said, let's go on June 5th was wrong. But then in an ironic situation, here they were wondering, the guy who had predicted it right came forward and said, you know what? It just might be possible that there could be a 12-hour break on Tuesday, the 6th, that we could just jump in right then and land and make it. And everyone said, oh my goodness, who do we believe? What do we do? And the whole movie was about the decision. And the men who were making that decision, from General Eisenhower to the meteorologists, knew that if they got it wrong, thousands of men, mostly men, young men, would die. We might lose the battle and we might lose the war. The name of the movie was Pressure. The actors were incredible. It was an incredible story, well portrayed. I would encourage you to watch it, not because you like war movies. There wasn't a whole lot about the war itself. Some pretty bloody scenes during the initial attack, which was bloody. But it's about men and women of courage under pressure. So it may not be on Netflix yet, but maybe it's worth the $10 or $15 to go see it at the theater. And by the way, as much as I watch a lot of my films on Netflix or other things, I realize also that every once in a while it's good to go to a big theater and actually get the full bang, big screen, noise experience just from time to time. Not all the time, because it's too expensive and the popcorn's too expensive. You can just do it much cheaper at home. But from time to time, do a big theater. Keep those guys alive and surviving. Okay, here we go. And when the film was done, I was so moved. I just stood up and I watched the credits roll. Because that was a list of the people who made this show possible, and I was going to honor them. Now, nobody else saw me, I'm sure. If they did, they thought, what is this crazy old man doing? But the credits rolled for 4 or 5 minutes, and I watched them all, every last one of them. And I just said to the screen, thank you. Thank you. I actually believe that my doing that actually had some effect somewhere in the universe for them. The fact that I stood for their work and I honored them by standing as the credits would roll. It made the week, and good people put on a good program, told a good story, and they did it well. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then, of course, I went to church and had a wow service. What a weekend. Hey, but I still had Monday mouth. So that's why here we are. 15 minutes on Tuesday. And I hope that these inconvenient, but maybe useful ideas will be helpful to you. That's what we do. And I think we do it well. As a coach, as a broadcaster, we are in the business of helping you do it well. Whatever you do in life and business, we want you to know how to do it well. Perhaps to even be a little bit of a great performer, and perhaps even better as a character and as someone who speaks life into a world that certainly needs life in oftentimes a culture of death and destruction. Thank you for your time. I hope this has been helpful. Remember now, watch out for the Monday mouth and all that means. And please, when someone does good work, stand and give them credit. Stand and give them credit. Honor them that way. Actually, I've even done that at church sometimes, right at the end. Just stood up to honor those who did the wow. I'm Stan Houston. I'm an old man with old ideas, but they're inconvenient, and I think they might even be helpful and useful to you today. And we'll talk more about that as things roll through the week. We'll see. Take care. All the best, and bye for now.